Welcome back to another Connected World podcast. I'm joined again by Mike Taylor, our Asset Reliability Lead. I'm Steve Wilkinson, Head of Product Innovation. We're going to continue talking about asset reliability and condition monitoring. And we talked a bit about last time, what is it? So this time, I guess, we want to talk a bit more about why. We'll talk about the business benefits and also why now, what's changed in recent years in terms of technology that maybe make this more accessible. So I guess maybe let's start with the business benefits. You know, what can people hope to achieve by implementing, say, a condition monitoring vibration analysis, like an online system?
The numerous benefits for an organisation. One, it gives them a holistic view of their plant and what's going on in their environment. I think previously we've touched on about safety as well.
Just remind us the safety element then.
So in the industry, there is the potential of a catastrophic failure. And unfortunately, that as a result of some business needs and requirements, depending on what industry sector that would be in, unfortunately, operations can dictate how the factory runs. Okay, whether or not there's an asset that's got the potential of a failure. So, as a result of the potential safety elements on an asset that's got likelihood for failure, they need to obviously take the opportunity to continuously check whether that machine is deteriorating more rapidly. So in the past, they would have kind of implemented potentially periodic checks with a data logger. That individual goes to the next to that asset with his data logger, records the readings, walks away, potentially then comes back the following day. Within that 24-hour period, the machine could potentially increase significantly in vibration levels. And, as a result, in rotating equipment, there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether that be in a pump, a fan, a gearbox, to the point if a bearing collapses and the potential likelihood of it going through the casing, if you've got an operator or an individual standing next to that, that's a big risk.
Yeah.
Okay. So they need to mitigate that risk. And obviously one of the options nowadays is as a result of online monitoring.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad you started with safety because it's always the number one with a lot of
very much so,
manufacturers and ourselves alike. And I think that is an ongoing theme that we hear across the board with manufacturing is taking people off the shop floor. This kind of movement towards like lights out manufacturing and safety is probably the number one driver for that. You can take people into a safe area and let them operate from there. Excellent. So safety, obviously, big business benefit. What else?
Okay, so another return of investment for the condition monitoring solution is obviously spares resources. Okay, how much stock inventory do they need to keep? For the likes of large drive motors, it's an expensive asset to just have sitting on the shelf. Okay, with the potential of that machine or that asset on the shelf not being ever used for, 5-6 years, or never used at all. And then the potential likelihood is that when they come to use that piece of equipment, it's sat on the shelf for the shelf for that long that it already needs an inspection before it's deployed.
Yes.
Okay, because there's things like false Brinelling, the bearings can sit there having a fatigue. No one's aware of it, but potentially that can happen. So if they've got a condition monitoring solution implemented on rotating equipment, utilizing vibration sensors. Okay, so the potential, like they identify faults. One of the biggest questions that we've already discussed is you've identified the fault. What's the lead time to the failure? by having an online monitoring solution, you can monitor that rate of deterioration,
Right.
which will effectively allow the organization to go ahead and identify the spares needed for the replacement instead of having that associated cost just sat there on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I guess manufacturers are used to managing the inventory of the materials they're using to produce, and I suppose it's no different in terms of spares for maintenance teams.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, so we've got safety, we've got inventory and spares management. Are there any other?
Manpower resource, I'd like to say there as well. You know, freeing up manpower, maintenance teams to do other priority instead of firefighting all the time. You know, if they can plan and forecast a potential fault, then obviously the payback of a condition monitoring solution is valuable to them.
Okay, perfect. So labour in there as well. What about, I suppose, in terms of actual reliability and cost of downtime?
Yeah, well, that's huge. Some industries, you know, for the potential of 1 hour downtime can be thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, depending on the industry, you know, whether it be food and beverage, general manufacturing, anything like that. You know, it's all about the uptime. They've got to keep that equipment running. And even to the point now where, you know, maintenance have really limited time as a result of operational demands and needs. So if they can forecast, identify the failure, then fantastic.
Okay. And so plenty of scope for a return on investment then. Typically, how quickly do people who implement something like this see an ROI in your experience?
Again, good question. You know, I can use a customer as an example. You know, each industry sector, you know, at the end of the day, they could deploy a condition monitoring solution and never see the return on investment very quickly. And, you know, it's that justification as to what we discussed before about the criticality assessment, you know, discussing the said industry, discussing with their procurement team about the benefits that they're going to see. And what we've just discussed there, providing all that kind of information to them. But if we go back to what I was saying about one customer, you know, they deployed in the region of, well, it was approximately 35 vibration sensors across their plant. And then within the initial deployment and with our support and guidance, we identified one, a mechanical issue, which, well, I wouldn't say mechanical, it was more of a cavitation issue with the pump. And another one was just purely as related of a temperature issue on a servo motor. So within a very short period of months, the return on investment had effectively, the solution had paid for itself, you know?
Yeah.
But again, I am fully aware that there's the potential likelihood is that, you know, an organization could stick a sensor on an asset and never see any deterioration within that asset. However, it's given the company, the organization, the reassurance that they don't need to apply any specific PMs, etc., time and resource.
And does that come down to the criticality assessment at the start then, to ensure that you're not just putting the sensors any old place just for the sake of it, that you're putting it somewhere you're most likely to get a return? Exactly.
And, you know, we're sitting here at the moment predominantly talking about vibration sensors. However, there are various sensor solutions. The condition monitoring is just the umbrella. You know, we can take, for example, on a pump, we can then start to take pressure. You know, we can take discharge and suction pressure. So effectively, you know, again, depending on the environment. So sometimes a vibration issue may not be just as a result of a mechanical failure. It can be as a result of process parameters. So the more meaningful information that you've got So let's say, for example, we've got a pump, suction pump, the vibration levels go up on the pump. Automatically, everyone starts to presume it's a result of a mechanical defect on the pump. However, there could be a blockage on the production line. And the only way that we're going to really see that holistically is if we're recording the discharge and suction pressure on the pump. So you can correlate all that information together, which again will give you more of a holistic view of the asset.
Okay. And what are some of the other types of condition monitoring then? Because we've talked a lot about vibration analysis. You've given a couple of examples there.
Yeah, pressure, as we've discussed, temperature, acoustic, ultrasound, pretty much where you've got the ability to, even to talk. Talk's a great solution in the industry and pretty much quite easy to adapt to as well from the PLC. Mm-hmm. But again, it's that justification on how much effort is required for the implementation. Mm-hmm. They may already have specific temperature sensors, pressure sensors, ultrasound sensors in place, but they've not discussed or identified how to take that data and push it through into the cloud. The utopia is to have all this information in one location.
Yeah.
So if you've got a vibration issue, then you can correlate that with any kind of process parameters.
I can't remember the exact number of years that you said, but you've been doing this for a while, yeah. What are some of the changes you've seen, particularly around probably potentially the technology and how that's changed and how that's changed people's approach to condition monitoring?
So I think originally, back in the day, we've discussed it was predominantly periodic checks. Manpower element, go to site, go offshore, go wherever, do periodic checks, and whether that could be a monthly, six weekly, 2 month quarter. There was no set rule. The guidance was pretty much on a monthly. The implementation of an online monitoring solution in the day many years ago was on real high speed rotating equipment, whether it be a turbine, gas compressor. The solution was massively expensive for implementation, and the majority of those specific solutions were provided at OEM stage. Okay.
Yeah.
However, as time's gone on now, and especially out there are numerous, too many to count, providers of wireless vibration sensors. Well, not just wireless vibration sensors, various sensor solutions which are now Bluetooth.
Right.
Okay. And as a result of Bluetooth and gateways, the associated cost for deployment of a condition monitoring solution is now significantly cheaper and easier to implement.
So is this kind of transition to like the industrial Internet of Things where, sensors are, like you described, they're wireless, they're battery powered, you can kind of fit them very easily. We're not having to run copper cable, which often can kill a job, just the price of pulling and dropping cables and the cables themselves. So I can see how that would enable you to do that.
Yeah, and obviously it's the appetite now in the industry. The oil and gas industry and petrochem have predominantly been more driven and focused for condition monitoring solutions. And I think that's as a result of the associated impact and associated cost for downtime.
Yeah. And
what we discussed before about safety. Whereas now we're starting to see a lot more different industrial sectors adopting condition monitoring solutions. For example, food and beverage. Everyone kind of thinks, oh, food and beverage, why? But the impacts, if someone doesn't get their bun with their burger for a certain fast food outlet, there's big consequences. Or there's a delay in a sausage roll not appearing and that's so it's easy to deploy on conveyor drive systems, etc. You know.
Yeah. So I suppose that kind of cost of entry coming down has meant when you do those criticality assessments, the point at which you're going to get an ROI is coming down as well, as in the less critical assets now can potentially still have an ROI because it's a lower cost of entry.
Yeah. And again, but this is again as a result of the downtime and the repercussions of downtime, you know, and the associated penalties to industries as a result of not having that specific product out the door in time. You know, we say it all the time. You know, you walk around specific industrial sites, factories, food factories, and you know, there's a specific standard that we should adopt to with the implementation of certain sensors technology on assets. But again, depending on the size of that asset, you might not have to adopt so many sensor solutions. You may just get away with one sensor solution. You know, they're not a disposable item. You can quite easily retrofit them and put them on another asset as well.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So that's been really helpful insight into why you would consider condition monitoring. I think on our next episode, we'll be talking about a bit more of a deep dive into a case study. So join us for that. In the meantime, thank you very much.
Thank you.